Shane Lopez. I'm Gallup Senior Scientist here, and I study hope for a living. So I've been on this quest to find the most hopeful people in the world. And I think we have some of them in this room, right? Yes. So today, what we're going to talk about is what hopeful teachers do differently, and then we're going to hear from the most hopeful teacher in America. We've been working on this project called the Gallup Student Poll for about 4 years now, and we're trying to figure out what's on the hearts and minds of America's students. So about 4 years ago, a little kid from my hometown in New Iberia, Louisiana, was the first of over 1 million students to answer questions about hope, engagement, and well-being. And what we found out is that how students think about the future drives how they behave today. So we've been doing just a ton of work trying to figure out the value of hope in a student's life, and also how adults in that student's life can promote hope and growth. So let me tell you a little bit about what we found out before we get to hear from the star of the show. So what we found out is that hope is worth a letter grade. So when you think about the value of hope in a person's life, it may seem kind of mythical, a little mystical, a little fuzzy. But when we do the research that looks at how hope is related to academic performance, hope is in fact worth a letter grade. Now that's the good news. The bad news is that only half of the students in America are hopeful. Only half the students in America are hopeful. What that means is only half of the students in America believe that their future will be better than the present, and they have some ability, some power to make it so. So how do we take those students and make sure that they're getting the benefits of a great education? But how do we meet the needs of the students who aren't hopeful today? So we're going to learn more about that. But here's what I want you to know. It doesn't matter how smart a child is. It doesn't matter how wealthy a child is. They have an equal shot at hope. I want to say that again. No matter how wealthy you are, no matter how bright you are today, you have a good shot at hope. In the research we've done, hope is not related to IQ, has zero correlation to IQ. Hope is not related to income, has little or no relationship to how much money you have as a family, how much money a child has in his or her pocket. So this is an equal opportunity resource that we can share with one another and share with our students to make their lives better. Now, in doing this poll, we found that there's some schools that are by nature high hope schools, and some schools that aren't. So in this last fall of 2012, what we did was we polled students in 1,700 schools across America, grades 5 through 12, elementaries, middles, and high schools. And we found that only about 192 of these schools were high hope schools. 192 were high hope schools. That meant that most of the kids in the room, most of the kids in the building, had high hope scores. They believed that the future would be better than the present. And they believed that they had some power to make it so. Now, we didn't think, as we knew, it wasn't related to IQ, it wasn't related to income. There were schools all across the country that were high hope schools. And we didn't think, we have to figure out what's driving the hope of these students. And we started to realize that it was a contagion. The hope from one person was moving to another person to another person. And that contagion is often started by a great principal and a group of great teachers. So here are a few, hello. It's that good, right? Good job. So here are a few facts I want you to know. When a leader, whether it's a superintendent, a principal, or a teacher in front of the classroom, makes a group of folks excited about the future, they're much more likely to be engaged in school. Much more likely. In fact, what we found out was that if you're in a group of folks and you say that your leader makes you enthusiastic about the future, there's a very good chance that you're going to be engaged at school or work. If you say that leader does not make you enthusiastic about the future, there is almost no chance you'll be engaged at school or work. So that's why these individuals matter so much. They're standing in front of a room, they're standing in front of a classroom, and they're either saying, you have a future to be excited about, or you don't. They're either inspiring that excitement and that enthusiasm, or they're not. The other thing we know is that when we have a hopeful person in front of the room, they're actually moving hope across different individuals to the third degree. Now, hear this out. So if I hand this hope over to this Mary Jones, who's a different Mary Jones than this Mary Jones, we'll get to that in a minute. But if I inspire hope in Mary, she can inspire hope in Clement, and he can inspire hope in Bernice. So think about these high hope schools in America. They're actually creating a contagion that creates hope in a community. So hope goes from a teacher to a student. The student goes home and shares it with a sibling. The sibling goes to his girlfriend's house and shares it with her. And now we've got this hope contagion, this ripple. And then the girlfriend goes to her job and shares it with her fellow employees. And those employees go home and share it with mom and dad. So these high hope schools are really community builders. They're hubs. They create hope throughout a community. Now we learned today, and we'll be announcing more results of the PDK Gallup poll, but I can give you one teaser of a headline that you'll see on Gallup.com, is that Americans want schools to teach these soft skills. Americans want you to teach these soft skills of hope and creativity and communication and critical thinking to our students, and then share them with others, and then take them to the job. So what we're finding is that high hope schools do that. So then Connie Rath and I, the Dean of Gallup University, we got this idea. We've got these high hope schools. We believe there might be some special people in those schools that are really building hope better than anyone else in America. There might be those people out there, but we weren't sure. So we sent these letters to all the principals who were high hope schools. Patricia Kelly got that letter, other people got that letter. And we said to them, you know what, you're a high hope school, please join us in doing that even better. We're going to help you develop your strengths and tackle the big challenges in your life through coaching. And we're going to try to build a better school with you. But we also had one request of you. Can you tell us if you have a teacher in your building who exemplifies that hopeful spirit and goes that next step further? He or she can spread hope throughout a group. And oh, by the way, they have to be a great teacher by all other measures. They have to be effective, and they have to be, making sure that all of the kids are getting what they need in terms of their learning. Principals, almost to a person, said, oh yeah, I know exactly who that teacher is. They had no trouble picking the most hopeful teachers in their building. They might have had a little trouble narrowing it down to just that one to nominate this year. So if you happen to be at Westover Elementary, you might be nominated another year. So they had a little trouble there, and then one principal said, oh, can I really nominate two? We're like, no. You can't have two most hopeful teachers in America. You can only have one. All right, so you have to pick. And then Connie and I had the joy of interviewing these teachers, of finding out more about their story, and finding out more about how they spread hope. Again, in service of great academic outcomes and incredible growth among these young people. We got to elicit 4 finalists, 4 amazing people. We got to chat with them on the phone. We got to know their strengths. We got to know what they did best. We got to know their stories. And these conversations were really, favorite part of my season. I mean, they were just wonderful, deep conversations about how to inspire children to be at their very best. And across those conversations, we found out that hopeful teachers behave differently. They do things that are different. They create, number one, they create this enthusiasm for the future by caring for a student, by giving attention. Now, there's a difference between giving attention and paying attention. I've learned this from these hopeful teachers. They give this attention away, expecting nothing in return. It's not a transaction. They deeply invest care and love in these students, and they make these students excited about the future. So that's what all these hopeful teachers did. They cared about their students deeply, and they made them excited about the future. The second thing they did is they really helped them overcome the obstacles that lay before them. They helped them deal with the challenges of everyday school life. And what's interesting there is that's exactly what our students need today. In poll after poll after poll, we have found that our students have incredible will, but low ways. Where there's a will, there's a way is not true with our American students today. Our students have incredible will. In fact, the group out of Paris, the OECD, measured the confidence of students around the world. We came in number 1. American students are the most confident students in the world. We have incredible will. But then when we ask our students, well, how do you exercise that will and go from point A to point B? they're not always sure. So hopeful teachers create the ways to get things done. The other thing that was amazing, because it tracked perfectly with our data about hopeful schools and high hope kids, is that hopeful teachers make learning relevant. They make learning relevant. So they tie what you're learning today to what you want in your future. Now, if you're working with 5th graders or 7th graders or 9th graders or 12th graders, it might be hard to think about what motivates them most. And we always struggle to kind of tap into what motivates these students. But what motivates them is the same thing that motivates us. They want a good life one day. They one day want a good job and a happy family. And what hopeful teachers are able to do is link what you're learning in class today to what you want in that good life down the road. So again, hopeful teachers, they're different. They're different. They make sure that they are giving attention, caring about students, and making them excited about the future. They make sure they're teaching them the ways to capitalize on that incredible will. And they make sure that they are demonstrating the relevance between what you're learning today in that 46 minutes of math and what you want from your future life. So that's what hopeful teachers do. So we heard from these hopeful teachers very common things, very similar things that unified them as a bunch. But you can only have one most hopeful teacher in America, right? We got off the phone each time, Connie and I would call each other back and we'd debrief about the interview and about the data we had on these teachers. And we kind of marvel at how amazing each one was. But after you talk to someone for a certain amount of time, it's like, okay, I've got enough information. There was one person we could have listened to all day because we were being lifted up in our conversation with her. We were being made more hopeful about teaching, about America, about students in our conversation with her. We had met the most hopeful teacher in America, and that person is Mary Hawkins Jones. Mary is a proud teacher at Westover Elementary in Montgomery County Public Schools. To learn more about the district, the school, and Mary herself, Dr. Joshua Starr, the superintendent, has agreed to be here. Joshua.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
So, I want to introduce the people before I go into the question. Is it possible to be frustrated and hopeful at the same time? We'll come back to that in a minute. But before I do, I just want to make sure I recognize and introduce people here from our Board of Education. We have President Chris Barkley, we have Vice President Bill Kaufman, we have Rebecca Sondrowski, who are one of our great supporters, and delegate, Charlotte Barkley. We have our MCC-PTA President, Janet Gilman, who's sitting right there. We have the head of our foundation, Mel Lashinsky. We have Deb Muggy, the head of our Administrators Union. We have Chris Carpenino, who is a member of our Chamber of Commerce and is I think, chair this year. From Central Office, we have Associate Superintendent Myra Davis, and we have, I always call you Myra Davis when it's Myra Smith. It's one of those things that get into blocks. Mine is Myra Smith, I'm sorry, and Denise Green is here too. And if I miss anybody, I apologize. So, the reason I'm frustrated is because I got on the web this morning, as I always do in the morning, and there's another report that says American students are shockingly unprepared for college. Right? ACT results are out. And I'm just looking at all these things every single day that are telling us why we're not good enough and why our kids aren't good enough. And it's getting really frustrating to me, quite frankly, because I've been spending this week in schools that are new innovation schools, schools that are really committed to doing new innovative work. And I'm talking to teachers, and I'm hearing the questions, and I'm talking to our administrators, I'm seeing the work of people, and I'm like, man, the work that our educators are doing every day, they know that we can be better, right? They are so deeply committed to doing the work. They're not sitting back saying, oh, it's the kids' fault, right? They're like working so hard every day. And getting really good results in so many positive ways. When I love talking to kids, and I do it all the time. When I talk to kids, I'm blown away by how interested they are in the world around them. The things our kids do during the summer, the things they do after school, the responsibility they take. I look at how hard our parents are working to not only put food on the table, but also to help support the schools. There's this, I get really frustrated by this rhetoric, right? This narrative that's been created in American public education that somehow wants people to think that we're not doing a good enough job. And yes, we have a long way to go, but then I look at the incredible hard work of our employees, right? And I look at what our kids want to do and what they aspire to, and I look at what our parents do, and I mean, there's a disconnect here. So when you're superintendent of schools, you actually have an opportunity to try to fill that void. And we have committed in Montgomery County to an approach that we believe will complement the academic skills that our kids need. And in fact, enable our kids to not only be great students, but great people. I tell folks all the time, I have 3 kids. This year I'm going to have a kindergartner, a 5th grader, and a 6th grader. And I don't know if having a kindergartner or a 6th grade girl like freaks me out more, but both of them sort of do. It was really cute when kindergartner had a backpack on, they're well prepared, ready to go. And I tell people all the time, right, I have 3 kids. I very much expect them and want them to be straight A students. Right? I want them to have all the academic skills they need to be successful. And I very much want them to be, and expect them to be great people who are ready to thrive in their future and meet the world in their terms. And if I had to choose, I don't want to choose, but if I had to choose, I'd rather have the average students and great people with a great sense of hope about their future than straight A students and average people. Right. Now again, I don't want to choose, but if I had to, I'd rather have them be people when they, my youngest is going to graduate in 2026. That's right. And there's the class of 2030 over sitting right there. Right? We don't know what the world's going to look like. You want them to meet it on their own terms. And yes, you want them to have all the academic skills they need to get there, but you want them to be able to thrive in their future. So I have 3 biological kids. I have 150,000 plus adopted kids, and I'm taking our responsibility in loco parentis very, very seriously. And what I want the way I want my kids to be able to enter the world as people who can really embrace it on their terms is exactly what I want for every single child in the world. And I'd like to think that we articulated that in our new strategic planning framework. Right? We've laid out 3 complementary skill sets and expectations and competencies that we want for not only our kids, but our teachers and our support professionals and our leaders, right? We have to be explicit about how we want to be with each other every day if we're then going to instill a sense of hope and well-being in our kids. We continue to focus strongly on academics. Academics are important, right? We want kids to have academic skills, and we know that some of our kids have done really well, and we know that some of our kids have a long way to go. Right? We know that our kids need creative problem-solving skills. Right? There are too many of our kids under the No Child Left Behind standardized testing era have been measured on the extent to which they can bubble in a test. When I talk to the engineering department at University of Maryland, they talk about how they have kids who come in, top-notch students, right? Major engineer, dropout of engineering majors after the first semester because they think there's only one way to go to fruition. They think there's only one way to answer a question. And in fact, what people want out there is, and I hire for this, is people who can think of the problem differently. So we can actually teach creative problem-solving skills. And then we can also teach very explicitly social-emotional well-being, right? And we're going to see that with Mary. She can talk about it much better than I can. We can be very intentional about how we help our kids have that kind of hope, have a sense of well-being, be able to persevere, right? Be able to persevere, be able to sit in a group, right? I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but if you've ever been in a group with your colleagues and somebody says something that's frustrating, right, or you may not like, do you have the ability to say, let me channel my energy into something positive, I'm not going to shut down, I'm going to engage with them because we're all working at the same thing? That's a social-emotional well-being. That's a social-emotional skill. The idea that you get feedback every day and you say, you know what, okay, Maybe I didn't like it because I thought I turned in an A paper. I thought I created the best, budget in the world to give to my board of education. But you know what? When you take their feedback and then you listen to it, you gotta have that result. You can't just say, no, it's my way or how. Right? That's way too easy. Way too easy to do. So we can actually teach our kids how to do that every single day. And it's not either or. Right? This isn't about social emotional well-being or critical problem solving skills or academic skills. It's not all of them. It's not all three. That's what our kids need. That's what Mary does. So we're gonna show you a short video that we shared with our administrators last week about Mary. And I want to tell you, I've already asked her to take on more work by helping to lead and inspire the rest of our teachers and employees, right? Employees. Another very quick. And I'm starting my week next week at 5 a.m. at the bus depot. Right? But the first adult that our kids see in the morning is our bus drivers. Right? Our bus drivers are so important to not only help us understand whether or not Josh is struggling that day, but set up a good tone with the child. Right? The people who are our service professionals are so important. So social emotional well-being is for every adult and for every child. And Mary, I think, does a fabulous job of just helping her kids understand it and embrace it. So before I introduce Mary, I want to recognize one other person and some folks. So you will see in the video how this notion changes of hope travels, right? And hope actually, while the example Shane used was maybe a week's time frame, you will actually see today about a 20-year time frame, right? Which is really, really cool. Sitting in the back is our this year's Teacher of the Year, Christina Orr, who's a kindergarten teacher, right? Just fabulous kindergarten teacher. You will see. She was a first grade teacher, first grade, right? It was first grade in Mary's class. 20 years, something like that. It's crazy, right? So hope travels. I also want to make sure I acknowledge Pat Keller, right? The principal of us, that we could not do this work without having leaders who get it, right? It's not just about, an individual can do it, but great schools happen with great leaders. And leaders who inspire, leaders who help people. Obviously, my job as superintendent is to help you do your best work. People remember their first grade teacher. They don't remember superintendents. They don't remember budgets, right? They policies. They remember the teachers, right? But teachers have to work in a place where the conditions for success, and Pat has done that, as you'll see. I also want to thank all the people, good-looking folks in tan shirts, right, who are our teachers and who are here supporting, who are supporting us. Thank you all. I know how hard you're working to get ready for Monday and the kids, but thank you for taking the time to be here and support College. So without further ado, let's go to the videotape to see a couple minutes on Mary. Thank you.
In that class list, I know that these students are destined for greatness, and I know they were given to me for a purpose. I'm hopeful that I will help them to find that purpose and help them move forward in their goals in life.
I think all good teachers see budding talent in kids, and we all say, wow, that's great. You want to be an engineer, you play the piano nicely. She takes it that next step, and she nurtures it.
Mary inspires kids. She instills a sense of vision and hope for what they can do, not only when they graduate elementary school, but when they graduate from high school and then college and then embrace the world.
I hired Mary 23 years ago, and I remember that interview as if it was yesterday. She came bouncing in my office, and first-year teacher, but she said something that I won't forget. She said, the children will remember this year with me.
She taught me the value of hard work and dedication, and that's how goals are accomplished. And I was very fortunate to receive that lesson very early on in life.
She was very shy. And so with Christina, I really worked with her developing her hope.
My parents are both immigrants from El Salvador, so I started my schooling with little to no English. And I have really no recollection of that, just because she created an environment that just was welcoming to all students.
As a teacher, I have to ensure that they build that confidence within them to tell them you are successful. Just look deep inside and find what you want to be, and I'll help you develop that.
Mrs. Hawkins-Jones worked at a school that was high ESOL, high poverty when I was in elementary school, and that didn't discourage her. She had the same expectations for us to succeed as any other teacher would.
You see the children just rise to the occasion. They're standing taller, and they fulfill those dreams. They see that, oh, I can be this, and this is what I can do.
She just had such a huge impact in the type of person and the type of teacher that I have become.
She's giving her students what I gave her. So it goes to show that hope, once it's developed, you can give it to someone else, and it'll continue and continue and continue.
Miss Jones, she helps us. She gets us motivated. She gets us cheerful. She always thinks of the positive things.
She believes in all of us, and she just helps us to be the best that we can be.
She'll find what motivates that child, whether it's drawing or a particular subject matter, and she will go from that point and teach them, to reach them.
As an educator, that's my job, to help students find their hope and then tell them, okay, let's set a strategy, let's make a plan so that you can accomplish this.
And her daily comments revolve around that. All the students have goals that they create at the beginning of the year.
I've set some goals to break up my grades and try my best to succeed in school.
She helps us pick new strategies that are going to help us make us better in that subject.
And once they reach that goal, we set another goal.
But Mary takes it a step further. She puts scaffolding in place. She gives the accommodations to make the children realize that they can reach that goal. So no longer is it just a wish. It's in place that they will make their goals.
We help them to develop their pathway of thinking, and that once you finish elementary, your next step, middle school, next step, high school, next step, college, next step, PhD. It's whatever you can imagine. Imagine big, imagine really great, so that you can accomplish that.
She gave that message that in order for us to succeed, we had to work hard, and that it was going to take a little bit of work, and it was going to take a lot of dedication, but we could get through it.
It gives them confidence to move forward. It gives you a growth mindset. It allows you to excel to the highest heights that you can. So everyone needs hope, and everyone has hope.
Thank you, Miss Jones, for such a wonderful year.
You are the best teacher I ever had. I will never forget you.
You have made me into the person that I am today.
Congratulations, Miss Jones, for winning the Most Hopeful Teachers Award.
In a moment, Josh and I will turn things over to Mary. But I want to tell you a little bit about the award itself. She gets a little swag. She is the first most hopeful teacher in America. And we're going to be hard-pressed to find someone who can take over, wear your crown. So she gets this award here. Also, she gets some checks. So it does come with a $2,500 cash prize. And impressively, she also gets special recognition from Congress. So Congressman Delaney's office got this off today, recognizing her as the most hopeful teacher in America. Mary, will you join us? I'm going to give you this. Now, for the next 3 hours, we're devoted to Mary.
First, I would like to say thank you to everyone who's here today. And Yaya, you're fine. Yaya is my neighbor next door. To be first, Shane, thank you for doing this research, because I never thought about what we do as Hope. And Westover is filled with hopeful teachers. It is filled. The people back here who were forced to wear shirts today. I would like for each of you to stand and receive your recognition as a high hope. So please stand. Everybody, it is a joy to go to work. You know, you can work a job in red going, but when I pull into that parking lot and I see that Matt's there, you know, he didn't bring me coffee, but that Matt's there and I see Tracy's car, I know it's going to be a good day, because those are my teammates. And when I see Papaka is there early every single morning. He's already warmed up the coffee for everyone. So, you know, to know that we're all there for a purpose, to ensure that our students get the best that we can give them. In the video, you met Christina. Christina is the Burns County's Teacher of the Year, and she was my first and second grade student. Christina, would you please stand for us? Christina was extremely shy, and I was like, oh my God, I don't know what to do, because it was my very first year of teaching. But I was able to look at her and see myself. One of the things, my family is here today, and one of my older sisters, she don't like to be called that, but she's here, and one of my older brothers, he doesn't like that either, but they'll be fine. They really, I'm number 10, how about that? So you can imagine, there was limited things I had to do, but these individuals, my older brothers and sisters, made sure that I had hope, that I learned the way and the different things that I should do in order to be a strong individual. My family flew here, drove here, did everything to get here today, and I would like for them to stand as well and say thank you. Oh, okay, you got your feeling. I was like, somebody can stand up. But, you know, I look at all the components in life. At work, I'm gaining hope, my family, and then it's my church. I'm a member of Bethel Assembly of God. My pastor, who was listening to the webinar, he's here today. Then I see members of my church family here today as well. So I want to say thank you. Thank you to each and every one. Hope to me, when I was looking at it, I had to look up the definition. If you look at the Westover shirts, it's on the back of the shirts. But, you know, I was like, wow, that is what we do as teachers every day. We want to make sure that our core purpose, which is part of our framework, we're striving to make sure that those students have the best future possible. We're teaching students now that we don't even know what job they're going to have 20 years from now, 30 years from now. But we do know, okay. We do know that we still instill hope in them at a very young age that it will continue. Christina, I met in first grade. My neighbor who's here today, Evan. Hey, Evan. Evan and I have been living next door to each other for 3 years. I met his mom first, and then I met Evan. And Evan and I have been best buddies ever since. And to think about hope, I think about Evan, I think about Noah, I think about those two individuals right there, because one thing Evan did one Mother's Day, he came to me, he said, Miss Mary, I want to tell you a secret. And I said, what? He said, I need your help. And I said, what do you need my help for? He said, I want to make a Mother's Day gift for my mom. I said, oh, you didn't make one in school? He said, yeah, but everybody made that gift. He said, I want something special. And I was like, okay. I said, so what's your plan? Tell me your plan. He said, my plan is to ask you. Okay, we need more than that. What do we want to do? And we talked about it, and I said, okay, let's sit down and write out our plan and everything. He's like, oh, I got it right? I said, yes, God, we can do this. And he wasn't in school yet. We sat down, and we wrote out a plan, we talked I've only known him 3 years of his little life, that he knew that I believed in him. And from day one, when I met Evan, we've always talked about, you know, I always asked him, what do you want to be? And you always ask me that, and every time I ask him, it changes. You know, the last time I asked him, he said he's going to be a ninja. And so every time we talk, it changes. But I always ask him, encourage him, I said, well, if you're going to do that, he said, I know, I need to fund you. I said, yes. So we can instill it in very young, small children that hope. That idea of concept that you have to make a plan. What are you going to do next? If that plan doesn't work, what are you going to do? Hope continues on and it continues to move forward. I have another student here in the room with me. His name is Ernest. Ernest I met in 3rd grade, and Ernest was very quiet. He very seldom spoke at any time. And one of the things from conferencing with his mom, they had moved around a lot. They were a military family. And I wanted to help him break that shell. So one day I finally got him to talk, and one thing we talked about was the fact that he didn't talk. And I said, why don't you talk? And he said, oh, I'm not going to be wrong. He was a military family. And they were in a public school, but he just knew there was no sense in him making friends. There was no need for that. And so I was like, oh, but you know, your family had bought a house. He said, oh, we've done that before. We bought houses before, but we always leave. I said, well, you know what? No matter what, even if you do leave, I promise I will stay in contact with you. He said, I've heard that before. I was like, really? I said, but no, not this one. You haven't heard from this girl here. You haven't heard from this teacher. And so he said, okay. So I gave Ernest a job in the classroom. He was the classroom monitor. He monitored all the desks because I found out from his mom he was a neat freak. He still is today. And so Ernest monitored all the desks and made sure, and he would come to me and say, this individual doesn't have the book straight. And then I said, okay, fine. I would talk to him. I said, you know, it would be helpful for me, if you really want to help me out, for you to start telling them, you know, suggesting that they do different things. And he did. It built his confidence to make friends, to start speaking with different students. And so to this day, and he's here today, Ernest, would you stand? Ernest, please stand. I kept that promise with him. When Ernest got his first job, we talked about saving. When he bought his car, we talked about it when he wrecked his car. We talked about insurance. When he went to his apartment, my husband and I, he invited us over. And so it has continued on and on and on. And you know, Ernest and I have lunch together once every summer. During summer, we have our luncheon day. And he always tells me, you know, in work, I was able to tell this person about this. And he said, I remember when you told me this in 5th grade. And I was like, wow. You know, that hope does continue. It does continue to move forward. So as we move forward in this school year, I want to challenge all teachers to stop, take a moment, get to know your students. What they're given to you for a purpose. And you want to help them find that purpose in life. I am so pleased and honored to have Christina here, Ernest here, to have Evan here, Noah, Yaya, because I know that I'm helping them to develop a purpose in life. If I could know individuals like Christina and Ernest, the world would be a better place. I spoke with a reporter from the Washington Post, and I told her, I said, really, this is a selfish act on my part. I said, I'm concerned about my future, so I'm going to give my students everything I possibly can give them to have the best future possible. So again, thank you.
I want to spend just a few moments we have left to visit and ask you a couple of questions. But then we have some folks who will run some mics around. We may ask you questions from the audience. Maybe it's a program about, I don't know. We'll see. So the first question, and it's really just asking you to tell me a story, because I love how deeply you know these students, how well you know them, how you can motivate them. Tell me about the student who won the Lovell Award.
Oh, Okay, so we have this bug club. Bug means bringing up grades, and it's for any grade that you bring up. And this particular student wanted the bug award, and I have to tell you, I hate the bugs. They're these little clippers. They make the world's most horrid sound that you've ever heard. And so I'm like, okay. So they have to set goals at Westover. All fifth graders coming into Westover, you have to set a quarterly goal. And so this particular student, he wanted this bug award. He wanted to make sure that he got a bug award. And one of the things he wanted to improve was his spelling. And so we talked about it, we worked out a plan, and one of the things was that he had to do the homework. I said, you gotta make sure you're doing homework. And he looked at me and he said, well, that's not gonna work. I don't do homework. I was like, you don't do homework? Why you don't do homework? And he's like, he said, there are a lot of things going on. I don't have time to do homework. I said, okay. I went to Dr. Kelly. We have our weekly team meetings, and we were talking about this particular student in the meeting. She said, okay. When we're talking in our meetings, she writes students' names down. She said, I'll put him on my list. I'll bring him in and talk to him. She brought him in. She talked to the student, and he told her he couldn't do the homework. He couldn't do it because of the circumstances at home, and that, he wasn't going to meet his goal. And so Dr. Kelly said, okay. She said, I'm going to give you something, and you're going to have to give me something. She said, if you come in at recess, you can come in. I'll make sure your words are here. We're going to write down your words. We're going to work on these words, and we're going to make sure that you get them. He said, okay. And so he was willing to give up 15 minutes of his recess, because that was the time available. So faithfully, without me having to remind him, he would go to the office to write these words. We take this first spelling test, and Dr. Kelly asked me, she said, and when's the test? I said, it's on Thursday. She said, okay, we're going to be ready. And I said, okay. We take the test, and he only had 10 words. There are 15 in all, and he had 10. And I gave him the 10, and I looked at him, and I was like, you passed. You got them. You got them all right. And he was happy. He said, can I have the other 5? And I was like, baby, why? He said, no. Dr. Kelly was telling me to push myself, and so I wrote the other 5, 5 times each, every single day. I think I know them. And I'm looking at him, and I was like, I hope you don't see the word in my face. I didn't want him to mess up this momentum. And so I said, okay, let's do the other 5. I said, you can do it. So we did the other 5, and he got 3 out of those 5 correct. And I don't know who was more relieved, him or me, but he was like, yes. And immediately he wanted to go take it to Dr. Kelly. He said, because she helped me. He said, she realized that I couldn't do the homework. And when I explained it to her, he said, she did what you tell us all the time. She came up with another strategy. So it was that in Westover, that's what we do. We help the students to set goals, and we help them accomplish those goals. And once they meet that goal, the next quarter, they have to set a new goal. So you're constantly building upon them and showing that once you reach one goal, then you continue to set another one, and you continue because that's a part of life. But once you hit an obstacle, when he couldn't do his homework, and then the principal was willing to make sure that homework time was made available in school for him, it helped him to realize that not only his teacher cared about him, but his principal as well.
That's wonderful. You mentioned Dr. Kelly. Patricia's been with you a long time.
We have known each other for 23 years. She hired me in 1990. She was the principal of the school that Christina and I both were in. So in that time, we have not always been in the same school. We've been apart for each other. But the one thing about our relationship that she has continued is that no matter what, wherever I live or state I'm in, she always sends me a birthday card. She has always done that. And that's that continued relationship. This is something as an administrator, she doesn't have to do. I mean, at one point I lived in Memphis, Tennessee. She still sent me a birthday card. I was there for 4 years. So she was building that relationship. And really, I had no intentions of coming back to Maryland. And then I met Brian. Well, I met her before, but Raleigh came looking for me. And I came back to Maryland, of course, because we had that relationship. Yes, Miss Montague was my mentor teacher at that time. And at that year, I had Lincoln Park had a staff reduction, and I was the last teacher hired, so that meant I was the teacher that had to leave. Well, with this, Dr. Kelly called me in. I'm confused because I'm brand new to the system. I don't understand. And I was like, I've only been here a week. I don't understand why I have to leave. And then she's showing me the numbers, and I'm still thinking in my head, it's only been a week, and I still have to leave. So Miss Montague, I went to her, told her the situation, and she listened, and then she left the room. Her and Dr. Kelly talked. The next day, I'm packing boxes. Miss Montague comes into the room, and she said, what are you doing? I said, well, remember I told you I have to leave. I'm packing. And so she was like, oh, you need to go talk to Dr. Kelly. So I go downstairs, talk to Dr. Kelly. And Dr. Kelly said, oh, we've taken care of all of that. So I'm excited. I didn't even ask how I was taken care of. I'm excited to go back to work. When I get upstairs to my classroom, or downstairs to my classroom, Miss Montague, I tell her all the good news. And I'm looking at her, and I'm like, what are you doing? She said, I'm packing. And I asked her why. I said, what are you doing? She said, Dr. Kelly didn't tell you? I said, no. She told me everything was taken care of. And she said, because I'm leaving in your place. I've chosen to go so that you can stay and have the best start to your career here with Dr. Kelly. So that's a sacrifice that she made, as well as Dr. Kelly. You're going to give up a seasoned, 25-year veteran teacher for a brand new teacher that was first year in teaching, first year in the state, first with everything. It was a highly, as Christine said, we represented 32 countries in 22 different languages. My language is Southern. It was a challenge, but you were willing to give all that up so that I could stay there and have the best start to my career.
There are cynics out in the world. I don't know if you've met any of them. But there are folks, and even in our ranks as educators, they'll say, well, I'm a master of content and pedagogy. I don't need to be hopeful. I don't need to inspire students. My job is to teach the content. How do you deal with those folks? How do you share your wisdom with them in a way that they can hear?
Well, I've met those people because I've been told hope is wishy-washy. They were like, that's flowers and, flower petals and sunshine. But just imagine, if you're in a dark room, can you learn anything? What can you see in a dark room? Hope brings light to the room. So when we offer hope to our students, as I say, Westlove, I work with a great team. Miss Kimberly and Miss Miranda. Now, Miss Miranda is our ESOL teacher, and she's also the ESOL teacher of the year from Montgomery County. Hey. We co-taught this year, Miss Miranda and the resource teacher, Miss Kimberly. And one of the things we did was that we confused the students because we would have students come up to us and say, am I an ESOL student? Because Miss Miranda led the class in writing. She did the writing class. And we were cutting up sentences and putting them back together, and we were doing all of this writing. And when you walked in the room and there were the three of us in there, you didn't know who was resource, who was ESOL, who was what, because we were all a class. And we were all making it happen. And, with that, one of the things that happened, and this is how I speak to those people, is that all those students in that classroom, from ESOL, from resource, were proficient or advanced in reading this year. So that's how it happens. We offer hope, we offer light into the room.
We have time for a few questions. If you raise your hand, we'll have some microphones come your way. Just introduce yourself and where you work, and then get your question up here.
Don't be shy. Come on.
In professor school, we run through it 26 seconds.
We do the 3 second way.
3 seconds.
Yeah, 5, 10, 30, 2. Okay. One question.
All right. So, part of the challenge we have is to figure out how to get others to be hopeful. You're 20, we have 22,000 employees, right, and every one of them, and 12,500 teachers, every one of them. What's your suggestion to help teachers who, maybe sitting over there thinking, I got so much going on, right? I have the curriculum, we have tests, we got stuff we got to do, and it's not part of my DNA, and it's great for you, Mary, because that's who you are, but I don't know how to do it, and I don't have time, and it's not on the test. So what would be your recommendation to us as a system to help to get other teachers, to just sort of start implementing the kind of practices that you have? How do you inspire others? Question.
Because we all have work, and my colleagues are here today, and we all feel like we should be in our classrooms right now. But what we have to do with the system-wide is identify this, as you have in the framework, as a need. This is a need. This, Westover is an example of how when we have hope in place, students meet the criteria for proficient and advanced. So once we show them, those individuals who may be cynical, that this is the evidence of what we can use and this is how it works. So I think we need to make sure that we model for them, that they hear real stories. Because a lot of people say, well, it won't work in a Title I school. Christina is the example of a Title I school. Well, it won't work in this particular type of school. I worked in Title I schools. I worked in schools that were predominantly African American. I worked in all types of schools. And from school to school, I take the same message with me, that hope is available. And it's available to everyone. And this is the one thing in our framework that doesn't cost money. It really won't cost us any extra money to develop this idea of how you develop hope into your students, and developing it in our teachers as well, to make sure that they understand that you're bringing light to those students. If we take care of the student, the whole student, not just the academic part, then that student will be able to build on this from kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade, to college, or to whatever their dreams may be. They will take it along with them. And in our framework, the core purpose is for us to build for the future. And as I said earlier, I'm selfish. I want a bright future. I want to know that, my students are there to take. I have teachers like Christina to teach my great-grandchildren. Charles, no, I didn't. So I want that to be there for them. So we have to make sure that they understand this is all of our future, and this is how we build it.
Today we have, and we'll take one more question. Today we have the PDK Gallup poll being released. It's the 45th year we do this, and you've honored us by agreeing to be a panelist this afternoon talking about the data. So I'm going to call upon my colleagues at PDK. We were chatting about you last night, the most hopeful teacher. Bill or Ashley, do you have any questions for Mary Hawkins-Jansky?
Thank you. Mary, first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
So, Shane mentioned that we had a series of questions in this year's poll where we asked Americans the importance of skills other than math, reading, science, and social studies, like critical thinking, like collaboration, like setting goals. So, and there was great support by Americans for those particular goals. Again, similar to what Joshua asked, how do we get that message out to Americans all across the country, the importance of those goals and what we can do in classrooms?
As we show the broad picture, we have to make sure they understand that this is a part of work. A friend of mine is here, and she's in the military, and she talks about all the time having to work with others and being in a collaborative environment. So that's what the new future holds for us. That's one of those skills that we have to ensure that all of our students are working for, because we don't work in isolation any longer. You're not going to be in just your little cubicle. At some point, you're going to have to interact with others, and you're going to have to make sure that you communicate well and convey the message completely in order for the task to be completed. With 21st century thinking, critical thinking, and our 21st century skills, we have to ensure that we're exposing those students to all those types of skills. A lot of students, yes, they know about the internet, they know how to go on the internet, but once I show my students, that if you use this particular search engine versus another search engine, it'll get you to what you're looking for a lot quicker. And they always say, oh, because they're thinking of one thing. So we have to help them to think outside the box. As Dr. Starr was saying, we have to develop that diversity in their thinking so that we'll be prepared for those futuristic jobs.
You know, you challenge teachers to really get to know their students and what they're thinking about in the future and ask them hard questions and motivate them to get to where they want to be. I want to end with a couple of challenges here for the audience. The Gallup Poll, we do that every year, every fall. That's how we found you. We found a High Hope school and we wanted to know who's the High Hope teacher that's helping how to make it happen. So I encourage all of you out there to think about nudging other folks to have their students tell us about their futures. And then finally, this is a big charge, but I think we can make it happen as a group if we all take steps to make it so today. Let's make the name Mary Hawkins Jones a household word. Let's share her name, that video, share the articles that come from this day in the newspapers and online. Share that with everyone you know and say, this is what a high school teacher looks like, and this is what your children deserve. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful school year.
That means we can all go.
That's a wrap. All right.